You know, as everyone knows, I want to start getting more experienced investors, people that maybe do it for a living or have started some sort of business or maybe run a Facebook group or a Discord server to come in, kind of start talking to you guys, talking to us as a community, and just share their investment experience. And, you know, I'm really hoping that'll kind of help us learn and up our game. The first person that I'm doing that with is Matt here. It's Matt Brown. I actually know Matt because I'm in a covered call strategy Facebook group that he created. So he created that group. There's over 16,000 members in there. And, you know, I reached out to Matt and he was happy to kind of share his experience and insights with us. So, you know, with that, we're just going to kind of go through his experience and ask him some questions and see, you know, what kind of insight he can provide to us. So, you know, Matt, the first thing I wanted to ask is really what your background is with investing.
Yeah. Look, I started off as a technical analyst. So I'd studied marketing statistics and I took a job in New Zealand. So for us, that's, you know, we call it going over the dip. The water body between Australia and New Zealand. So it's like it's a cousin relationship with New Zealand. And went over there, learned the trade. I had a really great mentor, and he taught me a lot about technical analysis. He was quite successful in his own right as a trader. And I then moved to Sydney and basically just grasped onto this whole analytical concept, you know, just absorbed everything. Mid-20s, you know, just loved it, you know, got right into it. And at that point in time, technical analysis or charting was still not quite mainstream for the big institutions. So
Right.
where I headed with that, I just developed my skills, my trade. I took a role. I used to be a stock trader only. So I took a role with a group that were involved in derivatives with options. And so I started to study that field. It took me a while. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So I ended up having to practice a lot, trade a lot, learned a lot with experiences, not losses, experiences. And resulted in, I guess, in the last few years was managing a small investment fund on covered calls, a strategy that is stocks and derivatives. So following that, that's what I've been doing. I actually quit work a few years ago, traveled around a little bit, came back and decided that I'd focused in on my own trading, my own path. And yeah, that's where I've started to build some of my own things and work with that, rather than working for an investment firm as I had before.
So you pretty much started investing professionally. And then recently you stopped doing that, and now you're kind of just investing for yourself.
Yes, I was always restricted in being able to trade for myself as well. And I actually got to a point where I didn't like, I guess, the culture of the firm that I was with last. And I decided that there was more to life. So I'm going to call it a midlife crisis. So I'm happy to call it that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So mainly your experience is in the stock markets and in options or derivatives. Do you invest in anything else like crypto, Forex, commodities, anything like that?
I've traded indexes. I took a stint there for a while trading the German DAX. There was no rhyme or reason why I traded the German DAX from Australia. It was, I think, more so because I didn't have to get up early hours anymore like I used to at trading the US market from Australia. I could do it late afternoon, so it was lifestyle. And at the moment, I'm actually contracted to develop a Bitcoin option education program for a group. So I'm not a crypto trader, but you know, I'm drawing on the skills of what I've done in the past and taking their knowledge and putting together some education for them. So there's just a new gig that I'm doing on the side because I've got plenty of time to sleep.
Right.
I've got all day long while the US is sleeping. I'm awake. So it's fill my day with Sorry?
So you said it's like what, like it's like 9 o'clock there right now in the morning.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are you like up throughout the night when the market's open?
Not anymore. When I managed funds, I would be up multiple times, sleep with the phone next to the phone. If anything pinged, get on the
Right.
computer. Now, how I manage my trading with covered calls, and I do a lot of spread trades as well. I do. I get up for the last hour and a half, 2 hours of the markets. So that's all I need. I rarely take action because I'm not trying to trade regularly. I, with this particular style of strategy, I'm more looking for time decay. So I'm positioning myself on underlying stocks that I perceive have got ability to hold value. I've got courses of action. I've got a trade plan for if things retrace, and with the covered call, if I get called away, then I'm happy with that. I don't enter a position, but
Right.
I don't need to watch the markets all day anymore.
Right. Well, that's nice when you're not having to do day trades or short-term swing trades, because I started doing that recently, and it is
Yep.
extremely time-consuming and it is definitely stressful. So
Yeah.
that's why I like covered calls though. So like I actually got started with options selling covered calls back in like November and December.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it seemed like a really great way to make some additional income. So why the group? I mean, what led you to start that covered call group?
Yeah. Funny enough, I have a few products, online products. I was selling retail products a few years ago through Amazon in the US. So I did that while I was actually still working at the firm. It was just a side project, me sort of, hey, I want to learn new things. I want to try new things all the time. So I got into online marketing, and I've ended up with my own products, selling courses and trade recommendations. And I've ended up, I thought the group scenario was really great. I took a look what was out there, and I thought, you know what? I've been doing this a long time. I've got a lot to share. So I started a covered call strategy group. I spoke to myself for about 6 months without anyone really watching or having much interaction. But all of a sudden it just took off.
Right.
And yeah, it was adding thousands of people a week, and I've now got some help in that, because by no means am I a Facebook moderator or have the skills. It's an interesting journey. So it started off as an experiment and a bit of a marketing approach, but now it's its own entity. So I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah.
No, I mean, that's pretty cool. People are posting in there like 10, 20 times a day. It's nice. You kind of get to see, where people are going wrong, what people are doing well. And then, people post other things related to options and just buying stocks that aren't related necessarily to covered calls. So, but so you made courses, you teach courses, or you created online videos, and, you provided people before this?
Yeah, so I did. I created stock market empowerment, and the purpose was that I've written courses for other groups in the past, as I mentioned. I'm also working on one now for someone else, and I thought, you know what, how I manage my portfolio with covered calls, and what I was forced to do when I was working for firms, I didn't quite agree with. So I thought, you know what, I want to impart what I believe to be better approach to others. So yeah, I did that. And look, it means that I don't have to go and work for another firm. If I can have my own online businesses, I can travel. When I can travel, I can go and travel and be anywhere in the world. So that was my life goal.
And what's the Matthew Brown mentoring?
Yeah, so I started initially in the coaching space. But I'll be blunt. Who the hell is Matthew Brown? I realized pretty quickly, like, well, that's probably not from a marketing perspective the best approach. And
right.
I used to travel around Australia doing seminars to clients and you know, promoting the firm that I used to work for. So I'm not unaccustomed to being on stage, but I'm no Anthony Robbins, no, you know, Robert Kiyosaki. So, and I don't want to be. So I'm happy imparting my knowledge and my experience, but at the same time, I realize coaching's probably not something that I'm pushing to go down the path. I still mentor. I have a small group of people that I mentor one-on-one, but it's quite time consuming as well. You know, for you to get the most out of mentoring.
Right.
I don't know about yourself, Brad, but as I mentioned earlier, I had a really great technical analyst mentor. And what I realized through the middle of my career is that I didn't have good mentorship. And so full circle, it was like, okay, well, having someone you can bounce ideas off that's got your interest, your best interest at hand as well is really helpful. So yeah, just from a learning perspective, everyone's got to go through their own journey.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, sometimes just have someone to guide you a little bit just helps.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, that's something I'm learning. I kind of dove blindly into options.
Yeah.
And it's like everything I've learned over the last 5, 6 years, I've like kind of forgot with that, with like the day and swing trades. I mean, emotions really get to me. I'm like following trade alerts. I'm doing it blindly and they're down 50%. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? You know, and I'm starting to come back to that. It's like, okay, I've lost enough money to realize like I need a better strategy in place. And I'm actually trying to learn that end of it because while, you know, I can do some like technical analysis for like long-term holdings, I have no experience doing it with day and swing trades. So it's definitely new for me. You know, cover call strategy is like options in general, right? It's super simple now that I understand it, but like I remember my buddy explaining it to me back in November or December, and it took me probably a month to really grasp like just what an option was and what a covered call really was. So, you know, with that, with all your experience doing covered calls and with the group, I mean, how would you explain what a covered call is in like the simplest of terms, right? For someone that has no experience with options.
Yeah. And look, you've nailed it. Options, they're here in Australia, they're classified as a sophisticated investor's tool. So that scares people away in the first place. You know, an option is simply a contract, and it's the right to buy or sell something. That's really what it is. So with an option, with the covered call, what we're talking about is that in simplest form, it's a risk reduction strategy. That's what it is first and foremost, because we sell a call option and receive some premium. The closest thing that you can think of with stocks is dividends. So you have stocks that pay a dividend. Here in Australia, dividends are a big thing. Investors will set up their investment portfolio based on dividends because they're a high yielding dividend type company here. The philosophy in America is that from a company perspective is that they have they can do better things with the profits of the company than just distribute them to the investor. So dividends aren't as huge. So the options market, which is the largest options market in the world, in the US, we can sell these call options, produce an additional dividend, if you like to call it that. I've heard it called as an income. If you sell call options regularly, you've got an income approach to investing. And it doesn't matter whether the stock is going sideways. That's the best scenario. If it goes up, that's okay, because you only sell calls if you're willing to sell your shares. And if it goes down, well, you've got a lower average cost or a lower break even as you go. So it's a risk reduction approach. And depending on how you manage it, it's a regular rate of return. That's probably, probably not as simple a description as it could be.
No, it's okay. I mean, I liked it because, you know, like when people say, like, I like to think it is essentially risk-free because you already own the stock, right? You own 100 shares. You can sell a contract on it for a price above what you paid it for. So now if
Yep.
it runs up, just make sure you sell the option at a price that you're willing to sell your 100 shares of stock at, right? So now if the stock
Yeah.
runs up, which it did to me, I held GameStop and I had it at like $11 a share, and it got bought away from me from covered calls at $12.50 a share, and
Yep.
I think 3 days later it went up.
Yep.
So, but even in that case, right, what's nice is I didn't lose money. Like I still was
No.
positive on my trade. And then, the other side of it too is if the stock tanks, you
Yeah.
can't, people say, well, you are on contract, you can't get out of it in order to sell at, a price you normally would to stop your losses. But technically you can, because if the stock's going down, the price of your contract is significantly decreasing. You could buy it back, pocket that, profit you made,
Yeah.
and sell your stock if you need to,
Yeah.
So I really
There's,
like it. Go ahead.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say there's always a course of action. It just depends on what are the numbers. So, your risk as a covered caller is still that the stock price decline. Some people perceive that there's lost opportunity cost, like with GameStop you just mentioned. You buy the stock, you sell a call above where you bought the stock price, and if the stock price runs, you all of a sudden you'll be exercised, and you might have missed out on a lot more upside potential in the stock. But you don't enter this strategy if you think the stock is going to be a fast running or a high moving stock price. That's
Right.
not what the nature of the strategy is. So in my group, you do see a lot of people talking about the meme stocks, AMC, GME. Out of interest, I decided running covered calls on GME, but I took it from a different perspective. So what I'm looking for in a position for a covered call, I run month to month. Some people do weekly options, but I started doing covered calls before weekly options were around. So I'm a bit more, I guess, in tune with this monthly cycle. I use weekly, but not on a regular basis.
Okay.
And so what I do is I run month to month. Now, what I'm looking for, and mathematically, at the money call options on average will produce about 2% premium per month.
Right.
So if you are consistent in that, then you've got a great opportunity of basically outperforming the index on the long term. You've got years where the index is going faster, returning more, declining, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for a 2-3% return premium each month on a position.
Right.
There's many different ways of skinning a cat. So you can end up running the same stock regularly, cycling in and out, or you could just be looking for new positions each month and looking for that minimum rate of return. But for GameStop, it's a high volatility stock. So the key to covered calls is something called implied volatility. So we've got time decay, but implied volatility will denote the difference between, say, and GameStop. Okay, so GME, instead of, and honestly I can't remember prices at the moment, but instead of, say, buying the stock at $140, or sorry, 160, 100, whatever it is at the moment, 150, and selling a 160 call, when it was at 180, I sold a 140 call.
Right.
Now, that's an in-the-money covered call. I'm going to be selling my stock at $140. I bought it at 160. I'm selling it at 140. There's a $20 loss in the underlying stock position, but I'm actually going to be making about 8 to 10% 1 month out of the extra premium that I got for selling that call. And that's all time and implied volatility.
Right.
So, yeah. So
that's why you do a month out, because you avoid that time decay.
Yeah, well, I get that time decay. That's the real key. So
right.
What I'm looking for is, in that scenario, not knowing what GameStop's going to do over the next month, I can tell you it's going to do one of three things. It's going to go up, it's going to go sideways, or it's going to go down. That's all I know. I'm not in the game of predicting what the market's going to do. I know for a fact that time will decay. And I know that with implied volatility, if it's high, that's when I sell it. The old rule with stocks is buy low, sell high. Same with implied volatility. Sell
Right.
high, buy low. So I'm looking for that scenario. So GameStop in the last month has just been slowly wavering downwards. And I'm still in the money at 140 with 2 weeks to go on the August options. So if
Right.
it holds above 140, then I still make the rate of return that I expected to make. If it goes below 140, do you know what I'm going to do? I'll end up selling 120, 110, whatever lower strike,
Right.
lowering my average cost. And based on the numbers, I'd have to crunch them, of course, but you know, I'd be looking for a profitable position still. So
Right.
yeah, that's how I would approach your meme stocks or your high vol stocks.
Right.
But it's not. I don't put it this way: portfolio management is still one of the most important things, no matter what strategy you're looking to implement. So and I'll just use round numbers. If I've got $100,000, I'm not going to go and put a large position size on GameStop. If I've usually got a 5% exposure in a stock position, then I will go half of that in something like GameStop,
Right.
because if it all turns pear-shaped, you know, they shut all their stores. There's a not a Delta virus strain. There's an Echo virus strain, and it's, you know, turning us all to zombies or what have you. Then, you know, all the stores are shut, shopping centers are shut, GameStop, it's got no business. Then, you know, it's going to collapse. So
Right. So,
always having that in mind is always thinking about risk before you get into the position.
right. And so you've been investing for a pretty long time. Um, you know, I know me, like the best way I learn is usually by making mistakes. You know, and I've definitely made some big mistakes investing that I've learned from. You know, you with all your experience. I mean, what are like your biggest lessons that you've learned so far with investing?
Yeah, I think what I just mentioned is probably the biggest one. Have a game plan before you actually get into a position. So you don't want to use the hope and pray method. Okay, I'm going to buy this stock or whatever the strategy is. I'm going to hope and pray that it turns out. So know what your course of action is before you get into a trade. So with the covered call, I don't know what a stock's going to do, but I do know that there's going to be time, and I know that
Right.
volatility works in my favor. So that's why I use that strategy. It smooths out my investing approach, and I've got an edge in the market, and that's time decay. There are
Right.
so many people that buy options for whatever reason because they're speculative, and they oh, GameStop's going to go up, so I buy a well out of the money call option, and it's going to make me a minute. Well, GameStop's gone down for the last, you know, month or so. So, you know, selling a call, I've made money anyway, even if the
Right.
stock price keeps going down.
So have your game plan pretty much. So that's bit you before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, like as a beginner with any strategy, you're developing your skills with it. You can get a template, but you need to still practice that. So, you know,
Right.
have a thought. You know, you'll develop your own skills. Each strategy you have to make it your own. So certainly look for you know, what's your entry, what's your exit, what do you do if it goes up, if it goes sideways, if it goes down, and how does it fit into your portfolio management?
And so, I mean, a lot of people, there's a ton of new retail investors, right? There's a ton of people that hadn't invested before, and, you know, beginning of 2020, they just all started investing. I mean, what would be like a very simple piece of advice that you would give to someone that has either just started investing or is, you know, looking to start investing? I mean, what sort of advice or simple strategy would you give them?
Yeah, look, people get attracted to all different things. Bitcoin's obviously, you know, one of the latest things that has really just exploded in terms of volume of people, institutions getting involved, etc. So normally I deal with stocks and people that have an interest in stocks to start with. So the first thing I ever say is just take a look at the companies that you know, brands that you know. Start
Right.
there. Just get a feel for understanding. there's a few different key categories that you need to practice and learn. One is analytics. Technical analysis or charting is the easiest method for people to adopt, because fundamental analysis and economic analysis, it takes time to learn, understand, and can be confusing for many beginners. So technical analysis is a great place to start for analyzing, reviewing. You then need to have strategy. So you've got to understand strategy. So if you can read a chart, if you then have a strategy, and that strategy could be as simple as buying some stocks, and then, of course, you need to build your experience with that. And so biggest lesson I was taught, and we don't need to keep notebooks anymore, but to have a trading diary, just something where you're writing down your thoughts, why you did this, because something I did a month ago, for me to go, why did I do that? If you've got some notes about it, you can sit there and just go, okay, well, look, this is what I was looking at the time. Apple, great company, I like this. I didn't look ahead to see when are the scheduled announcements, when was earnings coming out. I didn't look ahead to see.
Right.
So those things can have a big, I think that they're the best tool to start off with, is taking those three categories and just educating yourself in that.
Right. And, I found that I learned a lot. Like I have some people I work with, right, that, right when I started investing, or like a year after I started investing, I started working where I work, and, some of my coworkers have been investing for a while, and, we kind of like throw strategies off of one another, and, we find picks that we usually don't find if we weren't talking to each other, and, we'll both kind of like ride a stock up or, ride it down.
Yeah.
But like that's been definitely helpful for me, because like I can bounce my ideas or like even my trading plan or strategy off of like someone else that I trust.
Yeah. That support is, look, I was lucky. I started off just as a technical analyst, a junior analyst, with guys that have been trading for many, many years.
Right.
And so I would always walk in the morning, and we were using software which would take an hour to update end of day data when I first started. So, it would, we got live platforms now. We didn't have, a live platform. You had to have a specific feed direct from the stock exchange.
Is there like a specific software program that you would recommend to use for like your technical analysis, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a tough one, because what I do now is very different. I used to have Metastock, and I ran Metastock for many, many years. I don't know what software programs are out there now for charting and trading plan. So for me, I guess I do my analytics. I have specific industries that I'll be looking for. I'll be looking for exposure that will balance out my portfolio. And so then I'll use the technical analysis on the industry and on individual stocks, or with it, like stocks, and then choose stocks based on fundamentals and technicals. So I don't do screeners anymore. I used to as a trader, as a short-term trader, but I haven't done that for over a decade now. So it's I use trading platforms. I've used interactive brokers for probably 15 years, 10 years, something like that. I actually have no idea how long it's been now. I used Think or Swim prior to that. I've had T America. I've had my first trades were all with phone brokers, because there was no internet broking in New Zealand, Australia. So you'd have to call the broker up and place the call.
Yeah. No, the only reason I asked is we had some people asking in the group the other day, and I've been looking around for like the past few months. I'll just kind of poke at it. I'm like, I wonder what people use, but it sounds like, I think that's mainly for swing and day traders, like you said. Like a lot of people use that for their alerts. Yeah. And back to what I was saying, right? When you're talking to other people and you're kind of bouncing your strategies off of each other, that's, especially for me, and I think a lot of other people, that's how we kind of learn the best. I reached out to you, I think it was the beginning of this week. That's really when we first started talking. And, I introduced my app idea to you, TradeMatrix. And, I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. You've been in this field for a while. And, you know, how do you think it's going to fit currently into like the investment community?
I think, look, it's absolutely a great idea. What you're doing, I think, is really good. To give you, you know, I'm doing that on a small scale just with my trade recommendation group. So,
Right.
and so I have a private Facebook group just for that. So people that are on the recommendations, they can ask questions at any time. What you've got there, remembering I'm only on covered call strategy. So what you're doing with TradeMatrix is opening it up to multiple strategies, multiple authoritarians, if you like, who can provide guidance in that. I think that's really good, particularly for beginners who are trying to find their path, trying to find their way. What sort of strategy do you want to do? Be careful though. You don't want to be chopping and changing though, because it's always the next best thing, right? So when I started off with stocks, derivatives or options were around. I was scared by them because I was always told that they were high risk, and it took me quite a few years before I got involved in options. But then here in Australia, we had something come out called CFDs, contracts of difference, and they weren't available for US traders. I don't know if they are anymore, but CFDs came out. Then they were the next best thing. Then out of the UK was binary options, which was just pure gambling in my opinion. So binary options came out. So you don't want to chop and change all the time. You want to become an expert in a particular field. Once you're good at something, start to add on those other strategies, those other methodologies, so that you can enhance your portfolio.
Right. So start by following a few people that you like what they're doing, where their strategy kind of aligns with what you'd like to do, and kind of stick to that. And it's funny because I'm in these Discord servers, right? It's they issue these trade alerts, and the servers are awesome. I mean, they're set up very well, but you know, what I found is, like, rather than following one analyst, I'll get all excited and I'll follow multiple analysts. And I'm like, oh, they have an 80% win rate, but mine's like a 10% win rate. And it's because I'm bouncing all over the place and I'm not sticking to a single strategy. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. You know, I think for the experienced investors, you know, I think this is going to be very useful for the beginner investors.
Yeah,
absolutely. The people that just want to connect with their friends and kind of learn, but specifically for experienced investors, I think the big thing is the ability for them to kind of monetize from their experience. You know, we see it done with the Discord servers. They're all issuing these trade alerts, and like I said, the servers are great, but the big issue I have with them is there's no easy way to see what someone's currently holding in their portfolio. You know, you might have to scroll through 1,000 alerts to see, like, oh, this guy bought PayPal 2 months ago, right? Versus on TradeMatrix, you can just go to their profile, look at their portfolio, and see what they're holding, you know, and you can kind of see how much weight they're giving to all of them. But yeah, you know, we're excited for it to come out, and, you know, I wanted to ask, do you think it's something that you're going to use?
I'm pretty keen to jump in and get involved and see that. And so it was something that, you know, as I looked through what you sent through to me, I was like, hey, this is really good, because I'm doing it on a very small scale, just with one strategy. And I'm always wanting to learn other things. You know, it gives you ideas. You know, you can either improve your strategy, your methodology, by seeing what others are doing. And it comes back to, I think, what I mentioned about some of those key things, like a trading diary. You need a trading plan. You need to know what you're going to do before you get into a trade. So if you can go back and review, and I used to do this extensively as a beginner, I would go back a few months and see what I was doing and review that. Well, if you've got someone else that can turn around and show you reasons why, or, you know, hey, we did this and we did that, or you can ask the questions, why did you do that? And you know, learn from that. That to me is a great opportunity. And you know what? Sometimes you don't know what questions to ask. Someone else in the group will ask the question, and you go, oh, yeah, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought of that, you know, and it will open something for you too.
Right. Oh, that's good. We're definitely excited for it to launch. Could be a month from now. We're really focused on getting it functional or
Yeah.
as user friendly as possible, right?
Yeah.
Versus trying to launch it as soon as we can. So,
Yeah.
we're working through the last round of edits, but no, that's good to hear. Look, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know I said 30 minutes, it's already been 40. But I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and just kind of talking to us, talking to the group, and kind of providing your experience and knowledge. Yeah, we appreciate the support. Anyone that wants to learn more about covered calls, look at Matt's group. It's Covered Call
Yeah.
Strategy Group. I can send you the link if you'd like. It's also in the description of this event as well. And yeah, keep on the watch. I'm gonna try and get some more people on here, maybe once every week, every 2 weeks, and just kind of bring different investment experiences to our group and try and help everyone out. I really appreciate it, Matt. Is there anything else you want to say, wrapping up?
No, Brad. No, thanks for having me, and wish you all the best of luck. And I'll be in there anyway. So I'll see you in TradeMatrix. So.
Right. All right. Well, thank you again, Matt, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Will do. Thanks, Brad.
All right. Yeah, of course.